Chapter 61. The Creatures Inside the Cave. It didn't take long for Arthur to check the situation inside the cave, and his expression was rather peculiar. "My lord, there's nothing dangerous inside the cave, but we have a little problem," Arthur muttered with a troubled look. Hearing this, Alaric raised an eyebrow. "What did you see in there?" "I think it would be better for you to see it yourself, my lord." Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Just what did he see in there for him to be so hesitant to speak of it? "All right." Alaric gave a hand signal to the remaining warriors as he urged his horse to move towards the cave. Although Arthur said that the cave was safe, Alaric didn't let down his guard. His dominant hand was resting on the hilt of his sword. Upon reaching the mouth of the cave, Alaric smelled the distinct scent of animal urine. It was faint, but it didn't escape his enhanced sense of smell. A territorial mark. Most wild animals and monsters mark their territories by spraying their urine on specific areas. This was to delineate the boundaries of their territory and to communicate their presence to other creatures. "Hold on tight, Ivana," Alaric whispered. The elf reacted to his words by tightening her grip on his waist. "Please excuse my rudeness," Alaric muttered as he grabbed her legs. The elf jolted in shock at the unexpected touch. Before she could say anything, he slowly lifted her and delicately got down the horse to make sure that he was careful enough not to aggravate her wounds. So he just did it to bring me down from the horse. "You can release me now, Ivana." Alaric's voice resonated in her ears. Yes." The elf loosened her grip with a flustered look. Alaric removed the rope he had tied earlier and turned to look at her. "Can you walk on your own?" Although he couldn't see her complexion right now because of the mud that he had smeared on her face, he could tell that her face looked paler at this moment. Ivana didn't dare look at him. "Why, yes. It should be fine." Alaric knew that she was just acting tough, but he didn't expose her. "You don't need to push yourself. Just hold on to me if you feel like you're about to collapse." Elves are truly prideful. It must have been a really difficult decision for her to trust a human that she just met. "Amen," she hummed in response. Alaric was in no hurry to check what was inside the cave. He walked slowly to match the elf's pace. The warriors were aware of her condition, so they also considerately slowed down their pace. As soon as they entered the cave, the smell of ammonia became thicker. Even the normal warriors were able to detect the scent. It was then that the distinct cries of an animal drifted into their ears, but it didn't end there. They heard more sounds which made them realize that there wasn't just one creature. This sound, it's a cub. And there's more than one. Alaric finally understood the meaning behind Arthur's words. The former mercenary, Rigger, approached and whispered to his ears. "My lord, there are cubs inside this cave. I think this is a dwelling of a monster or a wild animal. It might get troublesome if the parents of the cubs are nearby. Let's take a look at what kind of creature they are first before making a decision. Finding another cave in this kind of weather would be troublesome." Arthur must have thought of this as well, so he left the final decision to me. "All right," Rigger nodded. A moment later, the group finally arrived at the den where the cubs were hidden. Saber-fanged wolves, Alaric's eyes widened upon seeing the white cubs rolling over their den. These creatures usually lived in the cold regions of the north, and the one feature that stood out from them was their fangs that looked like sharpened sabers. From birth, they were already classified as fatal grade because of their high affinity with mana. When they reach adulthood, they start to develop the ability to manipulate ice, making them even more fearsome monsters. Ordinary knights would be helpless against them. Even elite knights would have to group up when they meet an adult saber-fanged wolf. That was also the reason why they were classified as disaster-grade monsters upon reaching maturity. "Alaric, we need to get out of this place as quickly as possible." Charles couldn't stay still anymore when he identified the wolf cubs. The warriors were similarly nervous, but they patiently waited for Alaric to make the final decision. "Hold on, uncle." Alaric raised his hand, indicating for him to wait. He beckoned to Henry and told the old man to watch over Ivana. "Please keep an eye on her for me, Sir Henry." The old man nodded. Yes, my lord. Alaric approached the Wolf cubs while observing them. They look thin and almost malnourished. Their fur is also very dirty. From these small details, Alaric was 60% certain that their parents must have left for a while, but this made him confused. From his knowledge, saber-fanged wolves were very caring towards their cubs, and they didn't leave them alone for a long time. Based on this, he came up with a possibility. Their parents must have died outside or probably had an accident. Thinking about this, Alaric took out a meat jerky from his leather pouch. The smell of the jerky made the cubs turn in his direction. Although slightly wary of the stranger, they still approached him because of the smell of food. As if to show their excitement, the cubs raised their tiny heads and howled. A-woo! A-woo! Their cute howling sounds echoed within the cave, giving the warriors quite the scare. Charles in particular had an ashen look. If it weren't for the presence of the other warriors, he would have already left the cave. Is that bastard planning to lure the big wolves here? Chapter 62. An Unexpected Discovery. Alaric continued feeding the Wolf cubs with the jerky. They are already big enough to eat meat, so they're probably around a month old. Bring me some water and a few bowls, Alaric calmly instructed. Hearing his words, the warriors quickly brought him the things he asked. Alaric took the gourd and poured water into the bowls. He then stood up and told everyone about what he had observed. They looked visibly relieved, but some were still skeptical. After all, there was a chance that he could be wrong. Charles was starting to get impatient, but he decided to wait and see the situation. If something happens, I will prioritize my safety. Suddenly, Charles's eyes brightened as he thought about something. Now that I think about it, isn't this the perfect opportunity to get rid of him? If the cub's parents were to return, a fight would definitely break out. A knight won't survive against a pair of furious disaster-grade monsters. Charles snickered in his mind. What should we do with these cubs, my lord? Henry asked in a low voice. Alaric thought for a moment as he looked at the small, fluffy little creatures. If we take them with us, I'm positive that the cubs will attract unwanted attention. We might even be targeted by some opportunists, but it would be a pity to leave them here. After a full minute of internal struggle, Alaric opened his mouth. We will bring the cubs with us. Henry didn't seem to be surprised by his response, and it even looked like he had already expected this answer from him. It seems like you have already guessed my thoughts, Sir Henry, Alaric muttered with a wry smile. To some extent, yes, the old man laughed. Over an hour later, the two teams he had sent to investigate the area finally returned. Aldrin and Shelmo immediately reported their findings. My lord, we found no threat nearby, but there's something unusual. It was Aldrin who had spoken. Did you find a monster corpse? Alaric muttered. Shelmo and Aldrin were shocked. How did you know, my lord? Alaric rubbed his chin. Is it the corpse of a saber-fanged wolf? Both knights stared at him in disbelief. How? Is there only one corpse? Why, yes, my lord. And it's already in a bad state. It has probably been dead for a couple of days. But we found this from the corpse. Chomo took out a blue crystal and handed it to Alaric. A beast soul crystal, and it's at the disaster grade. Alaric was stunned when he sensed the powerful mana contained within the crystal. It was even denser than the beast soul crystal from the goblin chieftain. That's a beast soul crystal. Greed flashed in Charles's eyes when he saw the blue crystal in Alaric's hand. From the mana he sensed from it, he had a strong feeling that it could help him advance and become a transcendent knight. As if sensing his unusual gaze, Alaric turned his head. What a perceptive bastard! Charles smiled at him and even gave him a friendly nod, to which Alaric responded with an indifferent nod of his own. It seems like my uncle is interested in this beast's soul crystal. Unfortunately, I will never give this to you, dumbass. Alaric pulled his gaze away from Charles and stowed the beast's soul crystal inside his leather pouch. You two did a great job finding this. I will reward you handsomely once we return to the estate. Alaric tapped Shelmo's and Aldrin's shoulder. The two knights looked visibly excited upon hearing his words. All right, go and discuss amongst yourselves on who will perform the night watch. Alaric waved his hand. Keep your eyes peeled and immediately alert everyone if you sense any signs of danger, he warned them. Yes, my lord, the two knights acknowledged his command with a salute. You may go, he dismissed them. As soon as they left, he noticed someone approaching him, HM. When he saw who it was, his lips curved upwards. My dear nephew, can you show me the thing that you got from the knights? Charles rubbed his hand with an overly friendly smile. Alaric was peeved by his pretentious smile, but he didn't show it to his face. Oh, are you talking about the beast's soul crystal? Charles eagerly nodded. Yes, yes. The beast's soul crystal? Ha ha. Can you let me have a look? Of course, Alaric took out the beast's soul crystal from the leather pouch and handed it to Charles. Here. Charles almost had the urge to absorb it when the crystal touched his palm, but he held back his desire. Now I'm certain. This thing can help me break through. Ha ha ha. Now, how should I get my beloved nephew to give it to me? It looks really beautiful. I would love to put this on my mansion as a decoration. Charles stared deeply at Alaric while maintaining his cordial smile. Ha ha ha. That's a good idea, uncle. Alaric quickly snatched the beast's soul crystal from his hand. Maybe I should put this in my room as a decoration. He chuckled while playing with the crystal. Charles's smile stiffened. He felt a strong urge to punch his face. This stupid bastard. Did he not get the hint from my words? I should have made it clearer. Damn it. Let's chat later, uncle. I still have something to do. Please excuse me. Alaric brushed past him and walked away without waiting for his response. The veins on Charles's face protruded. That bastard. His face darkened as he stared at Alaric's back. Meanwhile, Alaric was gleefully laughing. Without even turning his head, he could already tell that his uncle was glaring at him. My lord, you look happy. Did something good happen? Henry asked when he saw Alaric laughing. Yes. Chelmo and Aldrin found a beast's soul crystal. Alaric explained the situation. Oh, well, Henry didn't expect this, but his expression suddenly turned serious. Since they only found one corpse, this means that one of the cubs' parents is still alive, the old man muttered. Alaric's face also turned serious. That's right. Chapter 63, Garrison Captain Jared Paxley. Night came, engulfing the world in darkness. The possibility of there being a disaster-grade monster close by made everyone feel restless. To ease everyone's worries, Warwick volunteered to stay awake. However, some warriors were still unable to fall asleep. Meanwhile, in one quiet corner, Alaric was reapplying the medicine paste on Ivana's wounds. To prevent anyone from seeing her appearance, he asked Henry, Aldrin, and Rigger to block everyone's view. In his past life, these three remained loyal to him even until his death, so he could rest assured that they wouldn't speak a word even if they discovered Ivana's identity. That should do it. When your body feels better, you can do this by yourself. Although Alaric had the soul of a middle-aged man, he still found it hard to control himself when facing an elf with unparalleled beauty. She had the kind of beauty that would invoke someone's desire to conquer. Too much beauty isn't a blessing, but a curse. Ivana stared at him and nodded her head. She was now less wary of him. The only thing that stopped her from fully believing in him was the stigma of being a human. Only a night had passed by, but everyone felt like it was an eternity. The next morning, the group quickly left the cave and headed straight to Ravad. They also took Wolf cubs with them. To hide the cubs' distinctive white fur, Alaric asked the warriors to rub their furs with ashes to make them look like they were normal wolf cubs. 6 saber-faned wolf cubs. The trip this time is already worth it, Henry exclaimed as he looked at the cubs that were temporarily put inside a big wooden cage. The cubs were surprisingly docile after being fed by Alaric. They didn't even protest when they were taken inside the wooden cage. With their strength, they could have destroyed the wooden cage and escaped, but it seemed like they had chosen to follow the person who had given them food. Remember to warn the warriors not to tell anyone about the cubs. We can't let this information leak out or we might face trouble, Alaric reminded the old elite knight. Yes, my lord. I'll make sure that no one would speak of it, Henry nodded with a grim look. At this moment, Charles was gnashing his teeth in jealousy over his nephew's blessed luck. Damn it! He got a disaster-grade beast soul crystal and even snagged 6 saber-fanged wolf cubs. He couldn't accept it. He was supposed to take them all if Alaric wasn't there. My dear nephew, I hope you won't blame your uncle for what I'm about to do soon. While Charles was brewing a dark plan, the group finally arrived at the entrance of Rivard. Due to the heavy snowfall, the city's gate looked deserted. Only the garrison guards could be seen loitering around with bored faces. At the sight of Alaric's group, the guards went on full alert. Stop! What's your objective for coming here? One of the guards raised his hand, indicating for them to stop. The guard looked visibly nervous from how his arm was shaking. His comrades were similarly shaken and some of them even grabbed the handle of their weapons. I am Alaric Silvasod, the sole heir of House Silvasod. Alaric took out an identity token, the insignia of House Silvasod. This should be enough to prove my identity. The guards furrowed their eyebrows as they stared intently at the insignia. Just then, a team of 10 guards led by a middle-aged man stepped out of the city and approached them with serious faces. Seeing this person, the guards relaxed. Captain, they greeted the middle-aged man with a respectful salute. I'll take it from here. You guys stand back, the middle-aged man commanded with a stern look. Hearing his words, the guards immediately retreated and stood behind him. The middle-aged man turned his head to Alaric and cupped his fists. I apologize for my subordinate's rudeness, my lord. I am Jared Paxley, the garrison captain of Rivard's main gate. Alaric already knew his identity from the start, but he acted like it was the first time he had seen him. So it's Garrison Captain Jared. It's an honor to meet you. Alaric cupped his fists. This man was the cousin of Nathan Paxley and his standing in House Paxley was quite impressive. The honor is mine, my lord. I've heard of the genius dual sword wielder from North Pine Town. You'll look really amazing in person. Ha ha. The tense atmosphere broke with a friendly interaction between the two. By the way, my lord, can you tell me why you have returned to Rivard after only leaving just a few days ago? Jared asked. Alaric was already prepared to answer this. We have a business to discuss with House Paxley, but I can't say it here. Garrison Captain Jared. He gave him an apologetic look. Jared was silent for a moment. House Silvasod had always been the staunchest ally of House Paxley. He even heard his cousin, Nathan Paxley, say that he was planning to marry his daughter to the heir of House Silvasod. Is this about the marriage? He thought. I understand, my lord, but I hope that you will allow my men to inspect your things just for formality. Jared took a step back. This was the best he could do for the heir of House Silvasod. That won't be a problem. Please proceed with the inspection. Garrison Captain Jared. Alaric smiled at him, feeling thankful for his consideration. Thank you for your trust, my lord. Jared cupped his fists. He then turned around and gave a signal to his men. After seeing his signal, the garrison guards immediately began their inspection. Since it has been proven that they were from House Silvasod, the garrison guards didn't actively inspect their possessions, they only did a simple check. Jared also joined the inspection, and the thing that drew his attention were the wolf cubs. Chapter 64, Furious Baron Nathan. Wolf cubs. Jared was curious, but he didn't ask anything about the cubs. Thank you for cooperating with our inspection, my lord. You can now enter the city. Jared smiled at Alaric. I appreciate your efforts in keeping the city safe, Garrison Captain. May you be blessed by Rue. Alaric cupped his fists. After bidding farewell to the garrison captain, Alaric's group headed inside the city. Despite the freezing weather, there were still some small business owners selling their goods on the streets. The group traveled for almost 2 hours before they arrived at the estate of House Paxley. Although surprised by their unexpected visit, the guards brought them in. They had seen Alaric before, so no one questioned his identity this time. Meanwhile, Nathan Paxley had also received a report regarding their arrival. Did they forget something? The Baron muttered, feeling a bit confused by their return. The Baron didn't bother to change his clothes. He just wore a coat over his tunics before he stepped out of his study. When he got down to the entrance hall, he saw his wife, Vivian Harrison, and his daughter Hershey Paxley waiting for him by the door. Nathan frowned and looked around, searching for his two sons. "Where's Liam and Theo?" he asked. "They should be here soon," Vivian responded. She then walked to Nathan's side and adjusted his coat. Nathan was dissatisfied, but he didn't say anything. He might be a baron, but he was slightly afraid of Vivian's collateral family. This was also the main reason why he wanted to strengthen his alliance with House Silvasaud. Nathan noticed that his wife was showing suspicious behavior recently, and there were signs that she was secretly building her own force. A few minutes later, Theo and the laid-back Liam finally showed up. "What took you so long?" Nathan glared at them. "I apologize, Father. I wanted to look good in front of Lord Alaric, so I took my time to choose the best outfit. Haha," Liam responded with a chuckle. Theo stared at his younger brother and remained silent. Sensing his gaze, Liam winked at him. "You better not say anything foolish in front of our guests later," Nathan snorted as he stormed out of the mansion. Vivian and Hershey quickly followed him. "Please keep it a secret, Theo," Liam whispered with a playful smirk as he walked past his older brother. Theo stared at his carefree figure and shook his head. "I don't know how to stop you anymore, Liam. I can only pray that Rue won't punish you excessively for your wrongdoings." Before coming here, he saw something in his brother's room that left him deeply unsettled. Theo felt that the younger brother that he once knew was no longer the same. It was as if he wasn't Liam anymore, but an evil spirit. As soon as he stepped out of the mansion, he saw Alaric jumping off from his horse. Theo was a proud man. He felt like his talent was one of the best among the younger generation. However, in front of a true genius like Alaric, he felt utterly hopeless. When he saw how Alaric defeated Cassandra in a duel, he realized that there was a big gap between them. It was like an insurmountable chasm that he would be unable to overcome no matter how he worked hard. While he was immersed in his complicated thoughts, Alaric had already exchanged greetings with the Baron and his wife. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon, Lord Alaric." Nathan laughed heartily. Alaric shook hands with the Baron. It was unknown if it was deliberate, but his eyes hovered over Liam, which made the latter raise his eyebrows in surprise. "HM, why is he looking at me? Why don't we head in for a chat, my lord? There is something I need to tell you," Alaric spoke in a flat tone. Looking at the serious expression on his face, Baron Nathan felt a sense of foreboding. "All right, but you can only bring a maximum of 4 people inside." Alaric nodded and chose for people to come with him, including his uncle. As much as he wanted to leave Charles out of this, he had no choice but to bring him since Charles was still his uncle. He temporarily left Vanna to Henry. He didn't bring her in because of her sensitive identity. As they entered the mansion, Charles shamelessly walked beside Nathan to chat with him. "Do you still remember me, my lord?" "Of course. How could I forget you, Lord Charles?" "Ha ha ha. I'm glad that you still remember me." "Ha ha ha." While the two were chatting, Alaric deliberately slowed down so he could walk side by side with Hershey. "Hello, my lady," he whispered in a voice that only Hershey could hear. Hershey looked at him and smiled when she heard his voice. Of course, this interaction didn't escape Liam's sight. Nathan brought them to the guest hall since it was bigger than his study room. As soon as they took their seats, Baron Nathan cautiously inquired, "May I know why you have returned to Rivard?" Alaric didn't waste any time and presented the document shared between Liam and the mercenary leader. "You will understand once you see this, my lord." Everyone curiously stared at the parchment paper he handed to the Baron, wondering what was written on it. On the other hand, Liam's eyebrows shot upwards when he saw the document. That stupid mercenary! He was certain that it was the same document he had signed with the mercenary leader. Baron Nathan's face grew increasingly darker the more he read. The others also sensed the abrupt change in his mood. Upon reading the final line, Baron Nathan put down the parchment paper and looked at his son. "Liam, what is the meaning of this?" Anger was palpable in his voice. "Her. What are you saying, Fa, my lord? I don't understand what's going on." Liam's face fell under everyone's doubtful eyes. Chapter 65, Liam's Lies. What do you mean you don't know? Stop playing innocent. Do you think I'm blind? Baron Nathan almost flipped the table in rage. Quell your anger, my lord. Can you tell us what happened first? Vivian didn't expect her husband to be this furious after reading a document. Nathan snorted and threw the parchment paper in her direction. Then you better take a look at what your son has done. Vivian grabbed the paper and nervously read the contents. When she realized what it was, she gasped in shock. Liam, how could you? Vivian's voice shook with disbelief. Theo took the paper from her hands and read it together with Hershey. The ashen-faced Liam immediately tried to explain himself. That's definitely a fabricated document. I would never do something like that. Please believe me. Are you saying that I'm lying? Alaric's cold voice echoed within the guest hall, making everyone feel a chill in their heart. A crooked smile hung on Liam's face as he defended himself. It's pretty clear to me that you are doing this to confuse my family. I can't believe you are actually this sinister, Alaric. He then turned his gaze towards the Baron and uttered emotionally. My lord, please investigate this matter deeply before accusing me of something I didn't do. Please believe in your son. Nathan hesitated. He was pretty sure that the document was real. But what if it was fabricated? The slight hesitation in his expression didn't escape Alaric's eyes. He let out a disappointed sigh while shaking his head. I knew something like this would happen. I can't stand these barefaced lies. I demand a trial by combat. If I lose, I will accept any punishment that comes. But if I win, Liam Paxley must die. May the benevolent God, Rue, bear witness to this sacred duel. His voice resonated like thunder. Baron Nathan and the others were stunned. They didn't expect that he would actually demand a duel. They were also believers of Rue, and they knew that a sacred duel was something that could never be rejected unless the challenger himself took back the challenge. Baron Nathan was planning to give his son a punishment, but he could never bring himself to kill his own son. My lord, why don't we talk this through? I believe we can still discuss this. Nathan muttered as he wiped off the sweat on his face. Vivian was also scared. Please take back your challenge, my lord. There is no need to hurt the alliance of our two households over something like this. Meanwhile, Liam was terrified. Alaric's eyes were akin to those of a predator's, sharp and terrifying. It made his legs feel so soft that he almost fell off his chair. Alaric glanced at the Baron and his wife. I'm sorry, but this is something that must be done. Your son hired a mercenary group to kill us. Do you know how many of my people were hurt because of his foolish stunts? If it wasn't for the friendship between our families, I would have already sent an assassin to kill him. The people behind Alaric were proud to see him standing up for them. Even his #1 hater, Charles, felt that he was cool, though he didn't want to admit it. Must you do this? Baron Nathan sighed. I have already thought it through, my lord. The sacred duel must proceed. Alaric remained firm in his decision. Baron Nathan took a glance at Liam and facepalmed in disappointment. On behalf of my son, I accept your challenge to a sacred duel. He sounded dispirited. No, father. How could you accept the duel? Liam was shaking in fear. Mom, please say something. Vivian lowered her head and sobbed. She knew that there was nothing she could do at this point. Rejecting the sacred duel was sacrilegious to the teachings of Rue. If that happens, she would definitely lose the support of her collateral family, and they would even face the ostracism of Eru's believers. Then we will wait for a cleric from the church to officiate the sacred duel. During this period, I hope that Lord Nathan will keep an eye on Liam. Alaric cupped his fists at the Baron. Baron Nathan nodded with a gloomy face. House Paxley will never disobey the teachings of Rue. You can rest assured. We will send you a messenger once the cleric has arrived. In that case, we will wait for your call. Please excuse me. Alaric turned around and took a deep look at Liam before he walked away with his companions. Liam's panicked voice and the Baron's furious were echoed from behind. What a foolish young man, Charles muttered in a mocking tone while shaking his head. Indeed. He betrayed his family's trust and now he has to face the punishment of Rue. Alaric muttered with an expression that was full of hidden meanings. Just as they stepped out of the main mansion, a servant suddenly came running towards them. The man bowed to Alaric and said, "My lord, the Baron wants to invite you to stay in the estate while we wait for the cleric." Hearing this, Alaric shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I'm still furious about this incident, so I have to decline the offer." He didn't give the servant a chance to say another word as he commanded his men to leave. "Let's go." "Yes, my lord." As soon as they left House Paxley's estate, Alaric's group searched for a place to stay in the city. Luckily for them, there were a lot of vacant inns nearby, so it didn't take them long to find suitable accommodation. After taking care of the warriors' accommodation, Alaric rented a separate room for Vanna, which was just next to his room. I need to prepare for the duel. Should I distribute my stat points now? Alaric thought to himself. He now had 35 stat points, including the most recent he got after doing the exercises inside the cave. Chapter 66, Liam's Shameless Suggestion. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 370 to 500ths. Potential, B. Traits, Horseback Riding C, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat C, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F, Sixth Sense F. Strength, 100. Stamina, 34 plus. Agility, 43 plus. Vitality, 27 plus. Endurance, 42 plus. Mana, 13 plus. Battle points, 2,570. Stat points, 35. Requirements for next advancement, 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. Alaric was confident to win the sacred duel because of his stat points and his unparalleled swordsmanship. What should I do with these stat points? Just as he was about to make his decision, a series of knocks on his door pulled him from his thoughts. Knock, knock, knock. Alaric raised an eyebrow as he closed the cyan screen. He then stood up and opened the door. "My lord, I apologize for the disturbance. It was Henry." The old man cast him a worried glance and asked, "Are you really sure about volunteering for the sacred duel?" Alaric was like a grandson to him, and he was worried that an accident might happen in the sacred duel. "I have already made my decision, Sir Henry. I understand that you are worried about me, but my decision will never change," Alaric responded with a calm look. The old man sighed and forced out a smile. "In that case, I hope that you make a thorough preparation. In a sacred duel, the use of mana is allowed, so you must be careful, my lord," he reminded. Alaric nodded with a grim look. He had almost forgotten this important detail. Unlike the unofficial spars that he had participated in before, where using mana was against the rules, it was the exact opposite in a sacred duel. "Thank you for your reminder, Sir Henry." Alaric was grateful for the old man's words. If it weren't for him, he might have already distributed all of his stat points. "Please rest well, my lord. Just call me if you need anything." "All right." After the old man left, Alaric headed back to his room and opened the cyan screen. His mana was currently his weakest attribute with only 13 points. Excluding my strength, most of my attributes should be at the average level. My mana, on the other hand, is barely at the level of a knight. Mana was crucial in a battle between knights. He had always neglected his mana because of his powerful swordsmanship, but in this sacred duel, having a higher mana might be a deciding factor in how the battle would end. Without hesitation, Alaric added all of his stat points to his mana. Mana 1348. At that moment, Alaric felt a surge of power rising within him. With this, I should be ready for the sacred duel. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Inside the main mansion of House Paxley. Father, you need to believe me. It really wasn't me. Liam kneeled in front of the Baron, his face covered in tears. Husband, he is still our child. There should be something we can do to save him, Vivian begged as he grabbed the Baron's arm. I also don't want this to happen, but we can't reject a sacred duel, Baron Nathan muttered while rubbing his temples. He looked like he had aged a decade in just a few hours. At this moment, Liam suddenly thought about something. He lifted his head and suggested with an ugly smile, Father, why don't we send that person? Baron Nathan frowned. Who are you talking about? The man they call the Butcher, Liam responded. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The Butcher was a nickname given to a heinous criminal who had caused a series of killings in Rivad. He was a deranged man addicted to killing, and it took the combined effort of multiple knights to subdue him. He was currently locked up in a cell, waiting for his public execution. Absurd! How could you make such a shameless suggestion? Have you no shame? Baron Nathan raised his hand and slapped Liam out of rage. Pa! My son! Are you all right? Vivian went to Liam's side and looked at his face with a tearful expression. She then glared at the Baron and shouted, How dare you hurt your son? Baron Nathan ignored her and kept his eyes on Liam. This is the last thing I will do for you as your father. Whether you live or die is up to you. He then turned his gaze to the elite knight standing behind him and uttered, Release the Butcher. He will represent us in the sacred duel. The expression of the elite knight hardened, but he still complied. Yes, my lord. Liam's face lit up with joy. Thank you, father. The Baron snorted and walked away with heavy strides. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Later that night, Alaric went to take a look at Ivana's situation. Knock, knock. He knocked on her door and said, It's me. Her response came a few seconds late. Wait, give me a minute to change. All right. Alaric bought her some winter dresses earlier since her clothes were already torn and tattered. A few minutes later, she finally opened the door. Come in. Ivana locked the door after Alaric stepped inside the room. He realized that the mud he had smeared on her was already gone. Now that she had cleaned up herself, a devastatingly beautiful face was revealed. Her long white hair was as white as snow and her cyan eyes sparkled with enchanting radiance. She was only wearing a dull winter dress meant for commoners, but it failed to hide her charm. How do you feel now? Alaric asked while trying to maintain his composure. I still feel a bit weak, but I should be fine after a few more days of rest, Ivana responded while breaking eye contact. I'm glad to hear that, but you should be careful. We can't let anyone see your face, not even my subordinates, Alaric reminded with a stern look. I will be careful. The elf nodded. Here's the medicine paste and the medicinal extract. Alaric handed her the things he had brought from his room. Thank you. I'll take my leave first. I'm on the room to your left, so just knock on my door if you need anything. All right. Alaric didn't stay any longer and stepped out of her room. She is still cold, but maybe a little less colder. He shook his head with a bitter smile. Chapter 67. A casual conversation with Ivana. Alaric woke up before sunrise to complete his daily mission. It had already become a part of his routine, so it felt natural to him. At this moment, he was doing his push-ups, his face looking incredibly relaxed. I wonder what will happen if I do twice the amount stated in the mission. Alaric's thoughts wandered while he was performing the exercises. Let's try. Maybe I can get double the rewards too. Who knows? He chuckled at his thoughts. And so, he did twice his daily mission because of this whimsical idea. 200 push-ups, 200 sit-ups, 200 pull-ups, 20 kilometers run, 200 vertical slashes, 200 diagonal slashes, 200 horizontal slashes, 200 stabs. After completing his exercises, he eagerly opened the science screen. You received 10 battle points. You received 1 EXP. You received 1 stat point. He sighed. All that effort for nothing. Well, at least I tried. He smiled bitterly when he saw that there were no changes in the rewards. After completing his daily mission, he headed back to the inn to change into a new set of winter clothes. He then went to the public dining hall downstairs to grab some food for himself and Ivana. By the time he arrived, he saw Aldrin and a few others gathered around a table, chatting about random matters. One of the warriors suddenly noticed him and stood up from his seat. "My lord." Alaric signaled with his hand, telling them to stay in their seats. "Just guys can relax. I only came here to grab my breakfast. I already ordered for all of us, my lord, including the vagrant woman." Aldrin hesitated. "I see. Thank you." Alaric tapped his shoulder and smiled. "Anything for you, my lord." Because of his presence, the warriors didn't dare speak too loudly and their backs were straight like a sword. Luckily, the awkward atmosphere disappeared after their food was served. "You guys can eat without. I'll take my share upstairs." Alaric grabbed 2 portions of the food before he went upstairs. Knock, knock, knock. "It's me. I brought your breakfast." At that moment, he heard a series of footsteps from inside the room before the door was opened. Creak! He saw that she had already covered her face with a cloth so only her cyan eyes were visible. She had also draped a coat over her shoulders, covering her body from the neck down. "Come inside," she uttered while staring at the food boxes in his hand. "Please excuse my intrusion." Alaric nodded to her as he entered the room. "I don't know what kind of food you prefer, so I only brought what I believed you would like," he said as he put the food boxes on the coffee table next to her bed. "Anything is all right. I'm not picky when it comes to food. As long as it's edible, I eat almost anything." While saying this, she removed the cloth that covered her face. Alaric was once again stunned by her appearance. "No matter how many times I see it, her beauty is still shocking." Ivana turned her head. "What's the matter?" She raised an eyebrow when she caught him staring at her face. Alaric cleared his throat and responded with an awkward chuckle. "I still can't believe that I'm speaking to an elf. Anyway, you should eat. I will eat in my room." He was afraid that he might make another blunder if he stayed in her room. However, before he could leave, Ivana shook her head and said, "You can stay here. Eating alone can be boring sometimes." Ivana's tone was flat, so Alaric couldn't tell what she was thinking. Was she starting to warm up to him? Or was it truly for the sake of having someone to accompany her in her meal? Alaric wasn't sure. "All right. You can ask me anything if you want." He didn't decline her invitation since he also wanted to know more about elves. Ivana took her seat and pointed at the chair perpendicular to her. "Please." Alaric nodded as he took his seat. "Why are you helping me?" the elf asked without looking at him. She had been meaning to ask him about this, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. Now she felt that it was the right moment. Alaric was silent for a moment before he answered, "I'm also not sure. To be honest, I was hesitant to help you since I heard that elves are proud and arrogant creatures. Maybe it was just a whim." Ivana didn't say anything and took a small bite of the roasted chicken leg. Seeing that she was silent, Alaric also began eating his meal. "Whether it was a whim or not, your decision saved my life." "I can't thank you enough." Her voice drifted into his ears. Alaric glanced at her and saw a slight change in her expression. Is it the angle, or is she smiling right now? Alaric tilted his head to get a clearer look at her face, but Ivana suddenly lowered her head. "You don't need to thank me. Just this experience alone is enough payment for my efforts. Next time, I can brag to my friends that I had spoken with an elf." Alaric chuckled. "You humans are weird," Ivana muttered. "Ha ha ha. That's true." Their conversation became more natural and the slight aversion they had towards each other vanished in that instant. "By the way, do you still remember the people who had wounded you?" Alaric asked while keeping an eye on her expression. Hearing this, a flicker of anger flashed in her eyes. I will never forget their faces, she replied in a cold voice. I can help you look for them. I have a subordinate who is really good at painting. He might be able to draw the faces of those people if you can describe their features in detail. Alaric rubbed his chin. There's no need. I will look for them myself once I gather my people. Ivana shook her head. All right. Just let me know if you change your mind. Knock. 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 HM. I'll go open it. Hide your face for a while, Alaric reminded Ivana. The elf nodded and wrapped a cloth on her head. After she had covered her face, Alaric went to open the door. My lord, the messenger is here. Chapter 68, Bishop Anton. The man who had knocked on the door was Aldrin. The messenger. Where is he? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. He is still downstairs chatting with Sir Henry and the others, Aldrin replied. All right. Tell everyone to get ready. We are leaving now. Yes, my lord. Aldrin bowed and left to deliver his message to the group. Meanwhile, Alaric closed the door and looked at Ivana. You should get ready as well. We will return to House Paxley's estate for the sacred duel. We can't let the cleric wait. I understand. The elf nodded her head. Let's chat again after this matter is over. He smiled lightly. I'll take my leave first. Just leave the food there. Someone will come to clean it up. After saying those words, he left to gather his stuff. Soon, everyone in the group gathered outside the inn. My lord, we should leave now, suggested the messenger, a middle-aged man with tanned skin. Alaric nodded. He then made a hand signal and said, Let's go. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Outside the main mansion of House Paxley, a temporary battle platform was set up for the sacred duel. At this moment, Baron Nathan was chatting with a kind-looking old man dressed in a white cassock. Your Excellency Anton, it's my greatest honor to see you in my humble home, Baron Nathan spoke cautiously. He was on edge because the person sent by the church wasn't an ordinary cleric, but a bishop. Usually, the church would only send a deacon or a priest to officiate a sacred duel. But for some unknown reason, they sent a bishop. Why did they send this person of all people? Baron Nathan was scared that they would be punished for sending a criminal as their fighter in a sacred duel. Don't be so tense, my lord. I only came here to officiate the sacred duel. The old man chuckled when he noticed the Baron's tensed face. Ha ha ha. I have embarrassed myself. Please forgive me, Your Excellency, Baron Nathan awkwardly laughed. Suddenly, the sound of chains being dragged on the floor echoed. Oh no! Baron Nathan quickly turned his head and saw something that made his heart sink. It was his good son, Liam, pulling a man who was tied in thick metal chains. That damned bastard! Why did he bring that guy here? How can I explain this to the bishop? Damn it! HM, what's going on here? Lord Nathan, the bishop immediately identified the man in chains. This. Actually, the Baron wiped off the sweat on his forehead while thinking of a good explanation. Are you perhaps sending that guy as your representative for the sacred duel? The bishop asked as he stared intently at the Baron. The old bishop's gaze was so intense that it made Nathan feel like something was gripping his heart. Why, Your Excellency? His words were cut short when the servant announced the arrival of the challenger. Lord Alaric of House Silvasad has arrived. Everyone turned their gazes at the cobblestone pavement. Leading the group was a young man dressed in leather armor with a metal breastplate. He looked dashing, but what made him special was the dignified temperament he exuded. Alaric jumped off his horse and landed gracefully. The first one he noticed in the crowd was the old man dressed in a white cassock. Bishop Amari Anton. Why is he here? This old man was no ordinary person. He was one of the highest-ranking priests in the church. Rank 6 in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, Bishop Amari Anton. Alaric's expression abruptly turned serious. From what he could remember, the bishop was a through-ringed beast soul master. This means that he had already strengthened his soul mark 3 times. Unlike knights who advance by breaking through their physical limits and expanding their mana. Beast Soul Masters had to strengthen their soul mark to advance in a process called Beast Soul Integration. This was done by absorbing the mana within the Beast Soul Crystal through their soul marks. Once successful, they would inherit a trait unique to the specific Beast Soul Crystal they had absorbed. Alaric glanced at the old man's wrist and noticed the 3 unique symbols on his soul marks. So he is already a full-ranked Beast Soul Master around this year. I wonder what kind of powers he inherited after undergoing 3 Beast Soul integrations. Alaric bowed to the old man and greeted him respectfully. "Greetings, Your Excellency. I apologize for being tardy." "It's fine. I just arrived here too." The bishop smiled gently and waved his hand. Alaric then cupped his fist at the Baron. "Greetings, my lord." Nathan nodded at him with a forced smile. "Since everyone is here, should we begin the ceremony?" The Baron cautiously asked for the bishop's opinion. What do you think, Lord Alaric?" Bishop Anton stroked his beard as he looked at the young knight. "I will follow the Baron's arrangements." Alaric nodded. Hearing his response, Baron Nathan immediately gave a cue to his retainers. Before the sacred duel starts, a short ceremony would be held for the representatives. This was to give them a chance to offer their prayers to Rue. The bishop summoned the representatives from each side. Alaric was the first one to approach the old man and offer his prayers to Rue. "Please hear my prayers, Rue," Alaric muttered as kneeled before the old man. The bishop calmly placed his hand on Alaric's head and prayed with his eyes closed. Mission, Sacred Duel. Difficulty, Easy. Defeat the man known as the Butcher and prove your faith before the benevolent God Rue. Rewards, 150 battle points, 30 XP, 5 stat points. Alaric opened his eyes. It was then that he saw his opponent for the Sacred Duel. It was a man who was over 9 feet tall, with a body covered in scars and bruises. He was a literal giant. With a glance, Alaric could already sense the formidable power he possessed. The bishop's eyes flashed with a glint when he saw this man walking towards them. The giant kneeled before the bishop and prayed in silence. Everyone watched the scene with bated breaths. Chapter 69. The Sacred Duel. Rue, I don't deserve to seek forgiveness, but I hope that you will listen to the words of this sinful man. I don't care if I die today, but please protect my daughter and grant her a happy life. The giant opened his eyes after praying to the benevolent God. You may rise, the bishop muttered. The giant stood up, causing the chains wrapped around his limbs to make a series of clanking sounds. Are both representatives for the sacred duel ready? The bishop eyed the two with a calm gaze. Alaric and the giant nodded. Please step into the battle platform. The sacred duel will begin shortly. With the announcement from the bishop, everyone watched as the two fighters walked onto the stage step by step. Will Lord Alaric be all right? Aldrin muttered with a hint of nervousness in his voice. Of course. Haven't you seen Lord Alaric's swordsmanship? Rigger responded with a gloomy look. He was also uncertain about how this duel would end. This might be a hard battle. That is no ordinary man. His mana is stable and his physique is akin to that of a beast. He should be close to the realm of elite knights, Warwick muttered with his eyebrows knitted closely together. The warriors of House Selvasad were starting to get worried for their lord. They didn't expect that House Paxley would actually send a man of this caliber in the sacred duel. Meanwhile, Hershey, who was spectating together with her family, was praying to Rue. Oh, Rue, please protect Lord Alaric. At this moment, the bishop jumped onto the stage and stood in between the representatives. The result of this sacred duel will determine the fate of Liam Paxley. Whatever happens, I hope that everyone will respect the outcome. The bishop gave a short speech before he announced the commencement of the duel. Begin! Alaric stared at the giant as he unsheathed his swords. That is the mark of a criminal branded on your body. I won't hesitate to kill you, Alaric muttered when he saw the brand on the giant's neck. This marking was given to the criminals on death row, so he was familiar with it. The giant didn't say anything and just stared deeply at him. He looks so young. He should be as old as my daughter. Seeing that his enemy was silent, Alaric no longer said anything. He immediately unleashed his mana and subsequently gathered them into his arms. As the powerful energy surged forth, he released a quick burst of sword strikes. Whoosh! 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 The giant narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect this young knight to summon such a powerful force. He is faster than me. I can't block all of his strikes. Knowing that he couldn't block everything, the giant used his halberd to protect his vital organs. Clang! Clang! Sword wounds appeared on his body as Alaric's slashes connected, but the giant didn't even flinch. His eyes remained serene, seemingly unbothered by the pain. Alaric frowned upon seeing this. I only managed to leave some shallow cuts. Suddenly, he saw a flash of light in front of his eyes, which made him instinctively pull his head. Bang! What? Alaric glanced at the halberd that almost crushed him. He finally realized that the giant wasn't just foolishly receiving his strikes. He was actually preparing for that one big attack. If Alaric was just half a second late, his body would have been crushed by that halberd. There was a glimmer of surprise in the giant's eyes. He didn't expect the young knight to evade his halberd. It never failed him before. For the first time since he stepped into the battle platform, he finally spoke. You are the youngest knight I have met. I feel reluctant to take your life, but I must kill you to save my daughter. His voice was deep and sounded like a low rumble. Hearing this, Alaric raised his eyebrows. What is he saying? The giant didn't give him the time to comprehend his words and charged at him. His heavy steps caused the platform to shake, and upon gathering enough momentum, he swung his halberd. Alaric's face fell. My 100 points of strength is still weaker than this man. He thought that 100 points in strength was the absolute limit that a human could reach, but it seemed like each individual had different inborn physical attributes. This man's strength is probably over 150 points. It was just a rough guess based on the power he sensed behind that halberd. Alaric hurriedly bent his body to avoid the fatal blow. Whoosh! The violent air brought by the attack almost caused him to lose balance. After his attack missed, the giant raised his leg and released a kick. Whoosh! Alaric didn't expect him to be this nimble despite his size. I can't evade it in time. Alaric immediately raised his sword and flashed on the muscular leg, hoping that the giant would pull back. However, the latter seemed to be unafraid of his swords. Alaric's sword struck his leg, but it was unable to penetrate past his bones that had been strengthened with mana. The muscular leg crushed into Alaric's body, sending him flying across the other side of the platform. Pow! The sound of his bones cracking echoed, making everyone feel a chill in their hearts. My lord! Lord Alaric! The warriors of House Silvasad panicked when they saw him get thrown like a ragdoll. Some of them pulled out their weapons and were about to step onto the platform, but a cold voice stopped them in their tracks. Do you plan to break the sacred covenant? The warriors turned their gazes at Charles. Don't bring shame to House Silvasad. This is a sacred duel. Whatever happens on the stage is Era's will, Charles lashed out furiously. The warriors hesitated upon hearing his words. Stand back, the old elite knight, Henry, shouted in a trembling voice. Lord Alaric chose to fight in this sacred duel. We must respect his decision regardless of the outcome. The old man's voice choked with emotion as he watched the tiny figure on the battle platform. The warriors loosened their grip on their weapons and brought their hands together. Rue, please protect Lord Alaric. Seeing that they had finally calmed down, Charles turned his attention back to the duel. He had a gloomy look on the surface, but he was screaming with glee internally. Just die here, my dear nephew. Ha ha ha. Don't worry. I will take care of the household, and I will also take good care of that little servant of yours. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, Hershey broke into tears. No, she rushed into the battle platform, but the warriors of House Paxley stopped her. My lady, please calm down. We will be punished if we break the sacred covenant. Hershey ignored their words and tried to break free from their grasp. Lord Alaric, she screamed. Suddenly, a furious Vivian approached and gave her a resounding slap. "Pa! Are you crazy? Do you plan to destroy our family?" Vivian shouted with a sharp, angry tone. Hershey grabbed her face while staring at the frail figure on the platform. "Stop embarrassing us, Hershey," Vivian muttered with an exasperated expression. She then sent the warriors a knowing look as she uttered in a commanding tone, "Keep an eye on her and make sure that she won't do anything foolish." "Yes, my lady," the warriors responded. On top of the platform, Alaric spat a mouthful of blood. He could feel his innards contorting with pain. "It looks like I broke a few ribs." His face was pale and full of sweat. "If my endurance was a little lower, that attack would have ended me." Unlike the goblin chieftain whose attack patterns were predictable, this giant was clearly more skilled. "Now, how can I win against this man?" Alaric observed the giant with a serious look on his face. "I have to survive first." At that moment, the giant's halberd struck once more. Alaric gritted his teeth and made a quick slide in between the giant's legs. He then brandished his swords. Hush! Hush! The giant tumbled after Alaric left deep cuts on his legs, but he quickly stabilized himself by stabbing his halberd firmly into the stone platform. Alaric took a deep breath. The cuts aren't deep enough to cut his tendons. He felt resistance when he slashed his swords, which means that the giant was able to gather mana into his legs to protect his tendons. "I almost got him. I just need to focus on his legs. Once he loses balance, he won't be able to block my sword anymore." Thinking about this, Alaric wiped off the blood at the corner of his lips and rushed out. His body was screaming with pain, but he pushed himself to the limits. Bang! Bang! The giant swung his halberd. However, he was unable to land a direct hit. Bang! Bang! Upon getting closer, Alaric suddenly swooped down. The giant had already anticipated this. He took a step back and raised his left arm before releasing a downward punch. Bang! Chapter 70, Innocent Man. He fell for it. Now is my chance. Alaric took an abrupt turn which caused the punch to miss him by a few inches. Bang! The giant's fist created a deep hole in the battle platform. After successfully evading, Alaric swung his swords. Whoosh! Kuksh! The giant's muscular arm was cut off. It was a feint. He intentionally aimed for my legs, but his real target was my dominant arm. The giant was stunned. Alaric wanted to end the battle with another strike, but the giant managed to block his swords by using his left arm, which was wrapped in chains. Clang! Alaric was surprised by his quick reaction. A normal person would have collapsed or panicked after having their arm cut off, but the giant remained calm. At this moment, the giant suddenly pushed him off with a low grunt which sent Alaric into the air. To stabilize himself, Alaric spun in midair. As soon as he landed, he made a quick dash forward while moving from side to side, showing off his amazing footwork. I need to end this quickly. I think my broken ribs are poking my insides. The feeling made him uncomfortable, but he gritted his teeth and gathered half of his remaining mana to perform another sword move. It wasn't like the fancy sword techniques used by the nobles in the capital. It was just a plain downward slash that used his spinning motion to release a more powerful force. However, the spectators viewed it differently. It was a move so graceful that it filled their hearts with shock. They were utterly flabbergasted by his swordsmanship. The giant had no time to react, but he managed to gather mana into his left arm to deliver a strong blow. The moment Alaric's sword struck the giant's fist, the former felt a fierce resistance. If this was an ordinary sword, that might have worked, but unfortunately, one of my swords is a bit special. Alaric imbued more mana into his arms, making his muscles bulge and his veins protrude. In that instant, his sword sliced through the giant's fist, splitting it in half before stabbing into the man's chest. The giant staggered, but there was no pain in his eyes, only regret. Alaric was familiar with this expression since it was something that he always saw whenever he looked at himself in the mirror. Why is he giving me that kind of look? Without mana to stop his bleeding, The giant fell to his knees as blood gushed out from his wounds. Alaric approached him, looking a bit bothered by the giant's gaze. "Do you have any last words?" he muttered while trying to remove the uneasy feeling rising within his chest. The giant raised his head and stared at him. "And my daughter?" His deep voice drifted into Alaric's ears. "He took my daughter and used me as a scapegoat. I took the blame for all the sins he had committed for the sake of my daughter's safety. Please save H." Cough. The giant emitted a gurgling sound after coughing a mouthful of blood. Alaric frowned upon hearing his words. "What are you talking about?" The giant's face was pale and it looked like he was about to collapse at any moment. "Liam, he killed all those women. It wasn't me." The giant's eyes dimmed after uttering those words. His body swayed to the side and fell with a heavy thud. Alaric immediately rushed to his side. "Your daughter, I will find her," he whispered to the dying man. He sympathized with this giant. From the words he had spoken, he could tell that he must have been a victim of Liam's manipulation. The giant looked like he wanted to say something, but only incomprehensible words mixed with gurgling sounds came out of his mouth. Even so, Alaric seemed to have understood it. "I understand. I will end your suffering." It was too late to save this man. He had already lost too much blood. The giant stared at the blue sky. "I'm sorry, my beloved daughter. Your father is useless." With a complicated expression on his face, Alaric stabbed the man's heart. Kuksk. The light in the giant's eyes faded. Underscore. Mission complete. You received 150 battle points, 30 XP, 5 stat points. Underscore. The cyan screen notified him of his victory, but there was no joy in Alaric's eyes. "Oh, Rue, did I do the right thing?" The sacred duel ends with Alaric's victory, Bishop Anton announced. The warriors of House Silvasad cheered in excitement. Well, except for one person. The battle was so intense that they were on their toes the whole time. "I knew it." "Lord Alaric is invincible among knights," Aldrin exclaimed. "He really made us worrying." Henry shook his head with a relieved sigh. "Quickly go and check Lord Alaric's condition," Warwick barked. "Yes, sir." While they were celebrating Alaric's victory, one man was cursing internally. How did that bastard win against that giant? This is impossible. Charles's face was incredibly gloomy. At this moment, Alaric was still staring at the giant's corpse when he felt a hand tapping on his shoulder. "HM." He turned his head and saw the bishop giving him a comforting smile. "Don't blame yourself over this. It wasn't your fault," the old man muttered as he turned his gaze to the giant. What a pitiful man. He was wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He was labeled as a lunatic addicted to killing when, in truth, he was just a father trying to protect his daughter. Bishop Anton shook his head and brought his palms together. "Oh, Rue, please guide this man's soul into your merciful embrace." Alaric also prayed for the giant's soul. "I will fulfill my promise. I will find your daughter." "My lord, are you all right?" Aldrin's voice echoed from behind. Alaric turned around and stared at him with a calm gaze. "I'm fine." Aldrin gulped. For some reason, he felt that Alaric looked terrifying at this moment. Chapter 71. Baron Nathan's Regret. "Liam, bring your ass out here," Alaric shouted atop the battle platform while searching for Liam in the crowd. Everyone stared in Baron Nathan's direction, but Liam wasn't there. Sensing everyone's gazes, the Baron turned around and frowned. "Where's Liam?" Vivian lowered her head as if trying to avoid his gaze. Seeing this, the Baron grabbed her arm with an agitation look. "What did you do?" "Where is Liam?" Vivian nervously shook her head. "I don't know." "Wasn't he here with us earlier?" she stammered in response. "Stop lying to me and spit it out while I'm still asking nicely." The Baron finally snapped and slapped her face. "Pa! You!" Vivian couldn't believe that her timid husband would actually slap her. "Do you think I'm afraid of you? I've only put up with you because of your family's influence. But do you really think that I don't know what you've been doing behind my back?" Baron Nathan's accumulated anger was released in that instant. Now tell me where that animal is hiding if you don't want the household to fall into ruin. Vivian's body trembled with a mixture of fear and anger. You're going to pay for this, she muttered coldly before she walked away. Stop, the Baron shouted, but she ignored his words and left without turning back. Damn it! That crazy bitch must have sent Liam away after the duel started. Suddenly, he heard a series of footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Alaric and his subordinates approaching him with cold gazes. Lord Nathan, it seems like there is a small issue on your side, Alaric muttered in a flat tone. It wasn't me. I have no intentions of disobeying the sacred covenant. Baron Nathan shook his head, his face full of sweat. Alaric shook his head. I'm disappointed, Lord Nathan. I expected more from you. Lord Alaric. You are speaking to the Baron. Theo stepped forward and stood in between them. Your name is Theo, right? Do you even know what your younger brother has done? Alaric asked with a hint of disdain in his voice. His words made Theo recall the scenes he had witnessed in Liam's room. Alaric narrowed his eyes and whispered, It seems like you know something. Theo's face fell and he was unable to retort. What's going on, Theo? Do you know something? Baron Nathan's expression was ugly to behold. Theo took a deep breath to calm himself before he answered with a grave tone. My lord, I discovered a corpse in Liam's room. What? Baron Nathan's eyes widened in disbelief. Meanwhile, Hershey gasped and covered her mouth in shock. A terrifying thought came into the Baron's mind. Liam is a murderer. As he thought of this, he immediately instructed the knight behind him, Go and search Liam's room at once. Tell me whatever he is hiding there. The knight nodded with a solemn look. Yes, my lord. After the knight left, Alaric's voice drifted into his ears. Lord Nathan, please allow my subordinates to search every corner of the estate. Lord Alaric, Theo frowned upon hearing this. The Baron pulled him and signaled for him to stand back. He then glanced deeply at Alaric and sighed while shaking his head. All right. After getting his approval, Alaric made a hand gesture and muttered, Start the search. If you find him, bring him to me alive. Yes, my lord. Liam, I think I know how you died in my past life. No wonder your family covered up your death. It turns out that you are an even greater evil than I thought. His eyes were burning with rage. The man he had killed in the sacred duel was an innocent person, but he died in such a wretched manner because of Liam's schemes. With heavy footsteps, he walked away, leaving a crowd of scared onlookers behind. Hershey burst into tears as she looked at his figure. Lord Alaric. At this moment, the bishop suddenly appeared. Your Excellency, Baron Nathan immediately greeted the old man. You made a terrible decision this time, Nathan. You sent an innocent man to fight for your heartless son, and now it seems like your alliance with the Silver Swords is at stake. The bishop sighed. Nathan Paxley's chest tightened upon hearing his words. I shouldn't have listened to Liam's words. Now it's too late. He regretted the decision he made and it filled him with remorse. My job here is done. I don't wish to involve myself in your affairs, so please excuse me. Bishop Anton didn't wait for his response and left with the people from the church. What have I done? The Baron muttered as he grabbed his hair with a blank look. Theo couldn't bear to see his father like this, so he tried to comfort him. My lord, I'll try to speak with Lord Alaric. There should be a way for us to prevent our alliance with them from falling apart. Please get some rest for now. He then glanced at his sister and instructed her. Hershey, please bring the Baron to his chamber. I will deal with the situation here. Hershey wiped away her tears and nodded. Okay. At this moment, Alaric was heading to Liam's room together with his subordinates and the warriors of House Paxley. That is Lord Liam's room. Someone pointed at the room at the end of the hallway. Hearing this, Alaric nodded and said, Smash it open. Before the warriors from House Paxley could say anything, Alaric's subordinates rushed out and broke the door to Liam's room. Bang! As soon as Alaric stepped inside the room, a decaying smell assaulted his nose, which made him frown. "My lord, there is a corpse here," Aldrin reported with a grim expression. Alaric walked towards the bedchamber where Aldrin saw the corpse. From the clothes on its body and its small stature, he realized that it was a woman, a young one at that. "Liam, that trash. How despicable. Take her corpse away and find her relatives," Alaric instructed. "Yes, my lord." The warriors of House Paxley couldn't believe that Liam was actually capable of doing such atrocious deeds. Chapter 72. The Women in the Secret Chamber. Alaric's subordinates later discovered a secret passage hidden underneath Liam's bed, which led to an underground chamber. To reach the underground chamber, they passed by a narrow and dark tunnel. Their only source of light was the flickering flames of the torches held by sconces. Upon entering the secret chamber, they saw more than 10 naked women of varying ages huddled together. They revealed fearful gazes when they heard the door creaking as it was pushed open. Alaric's face darkened upon seeing the bruises and the signs of torture on their bodies. One of them looked even younger than Elena, and this fragile little girl also shared the same wounds. "Liam," Alaric muttered through gritted teeth. The people near him couldn't help but shudder when they sensed his overflowing killing intent. "Cover their bodies first before sending them back to their families," Alaric instructed while trying to hold back his rage. "Yes, my lord." Everyone quickly moved into action. They brought clothes for the women and sent them out of the secret chamber. However, there was one particular woman who refused to go back to the surface. She looked quite young at around 17. She had a pretty face, but it was destroyed by a burn scar on the left side of her face. Her youthful body was also covered in whip marks and bruises, which she must have gotten after being tortured. Alaric couldn't even begin to imagine what kind of experience she had gone through. "My lord, what should we do with this woman?" a warrior asked hesitantly. "I'll go and talk to her. Continue searching the chamber and see if there is still something we can find," Alaric instructed calmly. "Yes, my lord," the warrior acknowledged his command with a salute before he turned around and left. While everyone was busy searching every corner of the bedchamber, Alaric approached the woman and asked, "Why didn't you go back with the rest?" The woman lifted her head, revealing her terrifying burn scar. With eyes flashing with hatred, she responded, "I want to kill him with my own hands, but before that, I will torture him and drink his blood." Alaric narrowed his eyes. He stared deeply at her and sighed. "If you're talking about Liam, there might be a small issue." "Why? Is it because of his identity?" The woman clenched her hands. "No," Alaric shook his head. "To tell you the truth, we are also searching for him, but it appears that he has already escaped." The woman frowned and lowered her head. "Don't worry, we will eventually find him and punish him for his crimes," Alaric muttered. "You should leave this matter to us and return to your family." Alaric turned around after saying those words. "Wait," the woman suddenly grabbed his arm, which provoked Alaric's subordinates. "What are you doing, woman?" "Do you know who this person is?" An agitated warrior spoke roughly. The woman was terrified when she sensed the warriors' gazes, but she didn't let go of Alaric's arm. Her determined eyes moved him, so he decided to give her a moment of his time. He signaled for the warriors to stand back and looked at the woman. "What do you want?" Alaric asked indifferently. The woman took a deep breath and said, "I don't know who you are, but please bring me with you." "I want to see that bastard die with my own eyes." Alaric gently pulled her hand off his arm as he responded, "Fine, but I have no intention of taking someone useless with me. What can you do for me?" The woman stared at her filthy hands and muttered, "I want to learn how to kill. If you teach me how to wield a sword, then I will be your sword." Alaric was taken aback. He didn't expect this kind of response. If she had told him that she knew how to do household chores, then he would have asked her to work as a maidservant. The words that he was about to say were now stuck in his throat. After a moment of silence, Alaric asked, "Why do you want to learn swordsmanship?" "I don't want to be powerless anymore." It was a firm response with no hesitation. Alaric rubbed his chin and thought deeply. What should I do with this woman? It was rare for a woman to become a warrior. Only a few special individuals like Cassandra could survive the rigorous training. What more a fragile woman who had been tortured and abused? After some careful thought, Alaric spoke. "What's your name?" "Ilya," she replied while staring at him with anticipation. "I can give you some swordsmanship lessons, but if you don't survive my training, then you will have to work as a servant instead." Ilya's eyes flashed with joy. "I will work hard, my lord. I will never give up." Alaric chuckled while shaking his head. "We will know soon if you are just speaking some empty words." Alaric and his subordinates searched every corner of the estate, but they found no signs of Liam. Night had arrived and the snowstorm was becoming increasingly severe, so Alaric told his subordinates to stop the search. On their way back to the main mansion, Josephus approached him and whispered to his ears, "My lord, I heard that it was Lady Vivian who helped Liam escape." "I know," Alaric nodded with a stern look. He had already thought of questioning her, but he would thoroughly offend House Paxley if he did that. "Lord Theo also wants to speak with you. Maybe he knows something," Josephus added. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. "Where is he?" "He's been following us quietly since we left the secret chamber." Josephus pointed somewhere behind them. Alaric followed his gaze and saw Theo trying to strike up a conversation with his subordinates, but no one seemed to have the intention of speaking with him. "Bring him here." Alaric couldn't fully trust this guy since he didn't know much about him, but he had no choice at this point. Chapter 73. Information about Liam. Theo was starting to get anxious. He tried to talk with Alaric's subordinates, but they pretended like they didn't hear him. He would have lashed out if this had happened before, but he could only patiently stick close to them. "I have to make sure that our alliance with the Silver Swords will not be affected by this incident. Once we lose their support, we might have to face another territorial conflict with the Tyrells." On the surface, House Paxley was the local ruler of Ravad, but this was far from the truth. There existed another household that rivaled them in terms of military strength and political influence. They are the Tyrells, a noble household of the north known for having a hand in the salt business. While he was immersed in his thoughts, he suddenly noticed someone approaching him. It was the young knight who always stuck close to Charles Silvasod. "Lord Theo, my lord wishes to see you," the young knight respectfully said while cupping his fists. Hearing this, Theo's eyes lit up. His chance had finally come. He suppressed his joy and responded with a nod. "All right, take me to him. Please follow me." Theo followed the young knight who soon brought him to Alaric. "Lord Alaric." Theo cupped his fists and looked at the man who had defeated the butcher. Alaric was injured in the sacred duel, and Theo even heard that he also broke a few bones. However, except for the bandages wrapped around his body, Alaric showed no signs of discomfort. "Lord Theo, we have already wasted an entire day, so I won't bother you with useless nonsense. Please tell me everything you know about your younger brother. From the places he usually visits, his hobby, his favorite food. I want to know all of it." Alaric stared calmly at him. Theo rubbed his palms, which had become stiff because of the cold air, before he responded. "Why don't we go somewhere more warm? I'll tell you everything I know about my brother." Alaric didn't make things difficult for him and nodded. "All right. Please prepare a place for my subordinates to stay. We will rest for tonight and continue our search tomorrow." "No problem," Theo agreed immediately. Theo brought them to the guest mansion where they last stayed. The place was already cleaned up and there were even servants on standby to help them with their needs. Alaric told everyone to rest before he went to chat with Theo on the balcony of the main hall. "Before I tell you everything I know, can you promise me that House Silvasod will remain as our ally?" Theo spoke as soon as they took their seats. Alaric stared deeply at him. They had no intention of cutting off their connection with the Paxleys, so Alaric nodded indifferently. "I can promise you that. Now, tell me what you know about Liam." Theo adjusted his sitting posture and took a deep breath as he spoke. "Liam, he is. He spent over an hour telling him everything he knew about his younger brother." Theo included all the information that he deemed as important. Alaric listened the whole time without saying a word. He only spoke to clarify a few things with Theo, but other than those few instances, he remained quiet. "That's all I know about him," Theo muttered. His throat felt dry after all that talking. Alaric leaned on his chair. He was already aware of most of the information that Theo had disclosed, but he did learn a lot about Liam from him. It was time to give them some reassurance. "Thank you for giving me all this information, Lord Theo. I can feel your sincerity, so you can rest assured. As long as House Paxley doesn't betray us, then the Silver Swords will remain as your ally." Hearing this, Theo heaved an internal sigh of relief. "Thank you, Lord Alaric." Alaric nodded. He stood up and offered a handshake, which Theo took with a light smile. After a few more exchanges, Theo bid him farewell and left. Alaric headed to his room. Upon entering his room, he didn't rest immediately. He noted down all the important details that he learned from Theo. He encircled the key information which might help them in their search. He did all this in almost 2 hours, and it was close to midnight when he completed this task. Given the terrible weather, Liam should still be in Ravad, but it will be hard to find him. Alaric rubbed his temples. He could already tell that this would be an arduous endeavor. "I must find him. I don't like this uneasy feeling." He felt deeply unsettled that an enemy like Liam was still alive, and he knew that the only way to remove this uneasiness was to eliminate the threat. "I will find you no matter what it takes." Alaric took off his winter clothes and wore something lighter. He then opened the science screen to check his progress. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 403 500ths. Potential B. Traits: Horseback Riding C, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat C, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F, Sixth Sense F. Strength 100, Stamina 34+, Agility 43+, Vitality 27+, Endurance 42+, Mana 48+, Battle Points 2,730, Stat Points 6. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. He only needed 100 points to reach his EXP requirement, but he was still far from completing the attributes and battle points requirement. His battle with the giant made him realize that there might be individuals who were more powerful than him in the Night Realm. For instance, the giant had superior physical attributes and his only weakness was his speed. If the giant wasn't occupied with the thought of saving his daughter, the battle might have ended differently. Thinking about that pitiful man, Alaric sighed and shook his head. "If only I knew that he was innocent from the start." He learned something from this battle. It was to never judge someone based on superficial information. Chapter 74. Give up on the search. On the 10th of December, year 208 in the Estanian calendar, Alaric's group began searching for Liam's whereabouts using the information they got from Theo. The snowstorm was still terrible, but they proceeded with the search. At this moment, the group was resting at a local diner when one of Alaric's subordinates approached him and reported, "My lord, we found the giant's daughter. She is one of the women we found in the secret chamber yesterday." Hearing this, Alaric was pleasantly surprised. "Where is she?" "She went to look for her husband after we helped her bury her father's remains," the warrior responded. "Did you send someone to accompany her?" Alaric asked. The warrior hesitated, but upon seeing Alaric's stern gaze, he could only tell him the truth. "She didn't want us to follow her. She said that she didn't want her husband to know what happened in the secret chamber," the warrior sighed. Alaric became silent. He had already fulfilled his promise to find the giant's daughter. Since the other party was safe, he felt that he shouldn't interfere with her life. "Just let her be. We can only hope that she will have a better life with her husband." Alaric waved his hand. "I understand. I will relay your instructions to the others." The warrior acknowledged his command. "All right. Bring the boys here to help us in the search." "Yes, my lord." The warrior turned around and left. Alaric turned his head to the window. Snow had already covered the road, so no carriages could be seen outside. Even the horses had trouble navigating through the thick snow. "Where are you, Liam?" The days went by in a flash. It was already the 31st of December and the weather had momentarily cleared up. The sun hung high above the horizon and a small portion of the piled-up snow had melted. Some brave hawkers pulled up their stalls to open for business and their shouts echoed in the quiet streets. Walking along the streets of Yorvin was a group of warriors clad in winter coats over their leather armor. "My lord, we have already searched half of Raivad over the past few weeks. I think it's time for us to give up." Josephus, who was walking beside Alaric, sighed while shaking his head. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and stopped in his tracks. He stared at his cousin and asked in a low voice, "Is that your idea?" Josephus nervously lowered his head. "Yes, it's my idea," he replied. Looking at his cousin's shifty gaze, Alaric could already tell what had happened. "It seems like my uncle has gotten tired of this whole situation. He probably didn't want the others to know about this, so he sent Josephus. He doesn't even care about his son's reputation." Thinking about this, Alaric found Josephus quite pitiful. "Raise your head." Alaric tapped his cousin's shoulder, making the latter jolt in surprise. "You're right. I think it's time for us to give up the search." Josephus didn't expect that he would agree so easily. "It's time to go home, everyone," Alaric muttered to the warriors. Everyone could see that he was reluctant to give up the search. "We have already done our best. You don't need to feel guilty about it, my nephew." Charles walked towards him and gave him a tap on the shoulder. Alaric stared at his uncle's smiling face and forced a smile. "You're right, uncle. I understand that you are still frustrated about what happened, but there is nothing we can do at this point." Charles shook his head with a look of regret. "That's a lot of talk for someone who barely helped in the search." Alaric sneered in his mind, but he didn't show it to his face. "I'll go and tell the Paxleys about our departure. I'll also inform them about your engagement with Hershey. In the meantime, you guys should pack our stuff so we can leave at once," Charles suggested. "All right, uncle. I'll leave it to you." Alaric nodded. He wanted to speak with Hershey before leaving, but he felt that things might be awkward between them because of the recent events. Charles smiled at him before turning his gaze to Josephus. "Come with me." "Yes, my lord." Josephus nodded. The two left soon after. Later that day, the group left the city and headed back to North Pine Town. "Uncle, you should go home first. I still have somewhere I need to go before going home." Charles was taken aback by his words. "What do you mean? Are you still planning to search for Liam?" He frowned. Alaric shook his head. "This isn't about Liam," he responded in a calm voice. Charles stared deeply at him. "And you can't tell me about it." "I'm sorry, uncle, but I can't say it." Charles was silent for a moment. Just what is this kid up to this time? After a minute of silence, he finally opened his mouth. "All right, but you can't go there alone. You must bring someone with you." Alaric nodded. "I already know who I should bring with me. Since you have already thought it through, I won't stop you. But you must be careful out there," Charles reminded, looking like a concerned uncle. "I will. Thank you for your concern." Alaric cupped his fists. He then turned around and called the people who would come with him. "Sir Arthur, Sir Henry, you two will be coming with me." For this trip, Alaric didn't want to bring too many people with him. After all, he planned to head to the territory of the elves and escort Ivana back to her home. Bringing many people would only make them conspicuous. After bidding farewell to the rest of the group, Alaric left with his small team in another direction. Charles stared at their disappearing figures with a thoughtful expression on his face. He made a hand gesture and beckoned to one of his subordinates. "My lord," a middle-aged warrior stood before him. Charles told the warrior to come closer and whispered something to his ears. "My lord, where are we headed to?" Henry asked with a serious look. He felt that something was amiss because Alaric was being too secretive. Arthur didn't say anything, but he was also curious. Alaric urged his horse to slow down. The two veteran warriors immediately did the same to match his speed. This matter is very important, so you must never tell this to anyone. Alaric alternated his gaze between the two before he continued. We are heading to the Enchanted Woodlands. When the two veteran warriors heard this name, their eyes froze in shock. The Enchanted Woodlands was a large patch of forest in the extreme north of the Estadian border. It was a place populated by powerful monsters and fearsome creatures, making it a no-man's land. Although it was deemed a dangerous place, this huge forest acted as a natural barrier that protected Estonia from enemy races who lived beyond the Enchanted Woodlands. My lord, that place is very dangerous. Henry couldn't let him travel to such a dangerous place. Alaric shook his head. You don't have to worry. We don't need to enter the forest. We just need to go to the periphery. He then nudged the person who was hugging his back and said, I think you should introduce yourself now to make them understand what's going on. The two veteran warriors moved their gazes at the vagrant woman whose face was covered. Can we trust them? An enchanting voice drifted into their ears. It was the first time they heard this woman speak and they were stunned by her voice. Don't worry, we can trust them. They are like family to me. Alaric nodded in response. Ivana hesitated, but she chose to trust Alaric. She had been with him for almost a month and Alaric never once showed any negative thoughts about her. He was the first human that made her feel safe. Under the dumbfounded gazes of Arthur and Henry, Ivana removed the cloth that covered her face. As soon as the cloth was removed, a devastatingly beautiful face was revealed, but the first thing they noticed was her pointy ears. You're an elf. Arthur's eyes widened. On the other hand, Henry already had some idea that her identity might not be so simple, but he never thought that she was actually an elf. The old elite knight stared at Alaric with a questioning gaze. He wanted to say something, but no words came out of his mouth. I know that this may be absurd, but I hope that you two can help me fulfill this task. Alaric trusted these two. One was like a grandfather to him and the other was a trusted confidant. I will follow you wherever you go, my lord. Arthur was the first one to express his thoughts. Henry shook his head bitterly. I never thought that I would escort an elf at my age. Chapter 75, Alverden. It was already evening when they arrived in a small town called Alverden. They decided to stop by this town for the night before continuing their journey, but there was a slight problem. Who are you guys? I haven't seen your faces before. The guards at the entrance of the town eyed them suspiciously. Henry took a step forward and said, We are from North Pine Town. We got lost because of the snowstorm and we found our way here after the sky cleared up. They had already agreed beforehand that they would hide their identities. Alaric didn't want anyone to know their tracks since they were escorting Ivana, who had a very sensitive identity. North Pine Town? That's quite far from here. Why did you guys even travel during the snowstorm? Henry remained calm in the face of their questioning. He had already memorized his answers, so he was able to provide them with a believable story. That's how we ended up here. The guards' faces relaxed a bit after hearing his response. All right, you can go inside after we check your items. Thank you. The guards inspected their bags meticulously. From how they were seriously handling their tasks, Alaric guessed that there must be something going on in the town. When it was time for Ivana to be checked, Alaric stopped them. We have complied with your instructions, so please don't go overboard. His firm voice echoed in their ears. She is a woman. It won't be appropriate for you guys to touch her. Alaric reminded them with a stern gaze. The guard who was about to inspect her frowned upon hearing his words, but he decided to let it go. Fine. The guard waved his hand while shaking his head. Alaric cupped his fists. Thank you. Luckily, the guards didn't make things difficult for them and allowed them entry after the inspection. As they entered the gates, Alaric saw the wanted posters pasted on the wall. There were more than 5 wanted men, which was quite a lot for a small town with only less than 1,000 residents. Why are the people here on edge? Ivana muttered. Because it's winter. Alaric's response made her confused. I don't understand. Alaric kept his gaze on the road and responded, "Some people don't have enough food for winter, so they rob others to survive." Alaric had seen worse things. Not all families had enough money to prepare for winter, and some of them could only resort to robbery to keep themselves alive. Ivana seemed to have experienced a culture shock. She couldn't believe it. Why don't they just give food to those who don't have enough? Alaric shook his head. For elves, it might be normal to give food and resources to your kind, but we are different. We won't hesitate to kill someone of our kind for the sake of ourselves, Alaric added with a calm voice. Ivana turned silent at his words. Not long later, they found an inn in a quiet corner of the town. Ivana didn't say anything, and it seemed like she was still thinking about Alaric's words. "You should rest. Just let me know if you need anything." Alaric handed Ivana the key to her room. The elf nodded and opened the door using the key. No wonder she was almost captured by elf hunters. This girl is too innocent. Alaric shook his head as he headed to his room. He was tired from their trip, so he immediately jumped into the bed. Just when he was about to fall asleep, a loud noise suddenly resounded, echoing through the whole town. "HM!" He immediately got up and grabbed his swords before stepping out of his room to check the situation. "My lord, I think that was a signal from the watchtower." Arthur, who had stepped out from the room across his muttered with a frown. "Go and ask the townspeople. See if they know what is happening," Alaric instructed. "Yes, my lord," Arthur nodded and went downstairs with haste. Meanwhile, Alaric knocked on Ivana's room and told her to stay put. "What's going on out there?" the elf asked. Alaric shook his head. "I don't know. Stay here and cover your face. I'll go downstairs to check the situation." He then handed her a dagger and said, "Don't let anyone else enter your room and use this if necessary." Ivana took the dagger and nodded her head. "All right." Alaric stepped out of her room and headed down the stairs. The guests of the inn had already gathered at the reception hall to inquire about the situation, but the owner was also clueless. Alaric later found Henry and Arthur chatting with the guests. "Did you find out what happened?" Arthur and Henry shook their heads. At this moment, the sound of the signal bell echoed once more, making the guests more nervous. Most of them were outsiders, so they didn't know much about the town, and this feeling of being clueless made them even more anxious. "Sir Arthur, you stay here and protect Ivana." "Sir Henry, let's go outside and find out what's happening." "Yes, my lord." Arthur went back upstairs while Alaric and Henry stepped out of the inn. The street was now empty and it seemed like everyone had already entered their homes. From the distance, Alaric saw a group of guards urgently running towards the eastern side of the town. Seeing this, Alaric sent Henry a knowing glance before he rushed out. The old elite knight followed half a step behind him. Most of the town guards were just normal warriors, so the two managed to catch up to them. "Wait," Alaric called out to the guards. The warriors were startled by his sudden call. "Can you tell us what's happening?" Alaric asked in a low voice. The warriors were a little bit annoyed after being stopped, but one of them still answered. "The patrol sounded the bell twice, so it means that there is a threat outside the town." Hearing this, Alaric and Henry frowned. Chapter 76, Scaled Hyenas. "You two should go back to your homes. We will take care of the situation," the warrior muttered before he left with his comrades. "What should we do, my lord?" Henry asked. The plan was to get some rest in the town before continuing their journey, but from the looks of it, they wouldn't be able to rest tonight. "We will decide after knowing the situation," Alaric responded, feeling a bit annoyed by the sudden turn of events. The two immediately headed to the eastern side of the town. Before they even arrived, they could already hear the sounds of battle, but it didn't sound like they were fighting against humans. Other than the shouts of the warriors, they also heard the roars of monsters. "My lord, we are almost there," Henry pointed at the earthen wall up ahead. The walls that surrounded the town were only about 5 meters tall. This wall should be enough to protect a small town from smaller monsters. However, it seemed like the monsters that had come this time were far more dangerous than what these walls could handle. At this moment, Alaric leapt on top of the wall to get a clearer look at the battle. Scaled hyenas. These wild beasts weren't powerful individually, but they were so coordinated when they attacked as a group. An adult scaled hyena was weaker than a normal warrior, but there were a few among these creatures who were as powerful as apprentice knights. As someone who lived in the north for a few decades, Alaric was familiar with these beasts. Even from a distance, he could already identify the most powerful scaled hyenas in the pack. There are about 100 of them, and there are only a few dozen town guards. Even if they win the battle, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Alaric calmly analyzed the situation. Should we intervene? My lord, Henry also reached a similar conclusion upon seeing the confrontation between the two sides. Alaric didn't respond right away. He raised his hand and pointed to a certain warrior who was leading the town guards in the defensive battle. It was a man who looked to be in his 40s. He was dressed in leather armor with steel breastplate and steel shoulder guards. With every swing of his two-handed war hammer, a poor scaled hyena would be smashed into meat paste. There was no skill or technique in his swings, just pure brute force and aggression. He is powerful for a knight, Henry remarked while observing the scene. Alaric nodded in agreement. It was because of this person that the scaled hyenas were unable to go past defensive lines. Other than him, there were also 5 knights who worked together with him to fend off the stronger hyenas. Meanwhile, the rest of the warriors only had to take care of the normal hyenas. Their teamwork is solid. Alaric was impressed by the town guard's systematic battle formation. Indeed, they must have been trained to fight against large groups of monsters. I have underestimated the warriors of this town. It seems like we are not needed here. Alaric chuckled while shaking his head. Just as he was about to turn around, the cyan screen suddenly popped up in front of his eyes. Underscore. Mission: kill the scaled hyenas. Difficulty: easy. Number of scaled hyenas killed: 30 to 237. Rewards: 150 battle points, 15 XP, 15 stat points. Penalty for failure: 500 battle points. Underscore. HM. There are 237 of them. Alaric frowned upon seeing the information of the mission. He scanned the distant forest with narrowed eyes, and he soon spotted more hyenas concealed in the darkness. There are more of them. Sir Henry, we need to help those warriors. Alaric jumped down the wall and rushed to aid the town guards. Henry raised an eyebrow and moved his gaze to the distant forest. How did Lord Alaric sense those monsters at this distance? Even an elite knight like me failed to discover them. The old man was surprised. When Alaric and Henry joined the battle, the town guards could finally take a breather. Are you the leader here? Alaric approached the middle-aged knight who wielded the two-handed war hammer. The latter lowered his head and nodded. Thank you for your help, sir. I'm Ronan, the captain of Alverton's town guards. Listen closely, Sir Ronan. There are more scaled hyenas hiding in the dark, so you better tell your men to preserve their strength. Alaric informed him about what he saw. Hearing this, Ronan furrowed his eyebrows. I understand. I will thank you properly once this is over, he muttered before he retreated to inform his subordinates about the presence of more hyenas. Alaric turned his gaze to Henry and instructed him. Just keep these people safe. Sir Henry, leave the rest to me. Henry acknowledged his command with a nod of his head. Yes, my lord. Lord Alaric might be talented and skilled for someone his age, but he still needs experience in battles like this. This might be a good chance for him to hone his combat abilities in a large-scale battle. Henry wasn't worried that a mishap would happen. Alaric had already proven himself repeatedly that he could overcome any situation. Alaric went all out in killing the scaled hyenas. His swords easily penetrated the monster's tough scales. His overwhelming strength and his remarkable swordsmanship surprised the town guards. Who is that person? Is he Wandering Knight? So powerful. What a beautiful swordsmanship. Everyone was in awe of his performance. Even the captain, Ronan, was stunned. After a moment of shock, he shouted, "Don't just stand there. We are the protectors of Alverton. Kill those beasts." As soon as his words fell into their ears, the town guards became more aggressive. They attacked the hyenas relentlessly, not even giving the creatures the chance to escape. At this moment, the hyenas, who were hidden in the darkness, finally made their move. They rushed fearlessly towards the warriors while emitting weird shrieking sounds. Ike! Ike! Chapter 77. Turning into a killing maniac to complete the mission. Ronan's face fell when he saw another wave of scaled hyenas appear. There are indeed more of them, and they look stronger than the first wave we fought. The ordinary warriors are already exhausted. Can we even handle all of these monsters? Ronan glanced at his subordinates and frowned. Most of the town guards were composed of ordinary warriors. They might be skilled, but their stamina will run out soon. Just when he was starting to get anxious, he saw the young knight he had spoken earlier charging towards the incoming hyenas. That guy, why is he so reckless? Ronan wanted to go and help him, but he was tied up by multiple hyenas. I have no time to waste on you guys. He furiously swung his two-handed warhammer and smashed the scaled hyenas in front of him. The hyenas that were struck by his warhammer were crushed into meat paste, unable to even utter a shriek. Blood and some pieces of internal organs splashed over his armor. Ronan didn't even bother to wipe off the blood that splashed on his face. Meanwhile, Alaric had already clashed with the new wave of scaled hyenas. He especially targeted those who would be a huge threat to the warriors. KSHHHKK. KSHHHKK. He effortlessly sliced the neck of the first hyena that lunged at him, which cleanly decapitated its head. 5 more hyenas pounced at him, baring their fangs and swiping their sharp claws. Seeing this, Alaric suddenly wielded his sword with an unbelievable speed. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, the 5 scaled hyenas were cut into pieces. His sword was so fast that even an elite knight like Henry barely saw the trajectory of his strikes. Not even Lord Lucas was this skilled at his age. Alaric was evolving with terrifying momentum and filled him with immense pride. Under the shocked gazes of the warriors, Alaric continued his carnage. No hyena managed to survive after being slashed by his sword. Even those hyenas who possessed mono were mercilessly slaughtered. At that moment, an ear-piercing cry resonated in his ears. HM. Alaric stared at the largest hyenas in the pack. It was almost twice the size of the normal hyenas. The beast was also more muscular and the scales on its body looked more formidable. That guy must be the leader of this pack. The pressure emitted by the beast was similar to that of an experienced knight's aura. The alpha-scaled hyena turned into a blur as it rushed towards Alaric with ghostly movements. Its beastly eyes flashed with cruelty as it swiped its dagger-like claws at him. Alaric dodged its claws by tilting his body. He then thrust his sword, aiming to stab its neck. However, the creature abruptly turned its body, evading his sword by a narrow margin. Not bad, it's quite fast. Alaric didn't give it a chance to retreat and released a flurry of attacks. The beast might be fast, but Alaric's swords were even faster. Cuts appeared on its body as Alaric's strikes connected. In just a few breaths, the creature's body was already covered in wounds. The ferocity in its eyes vanished and was replaced with unprecedented fear. It backed off and slowly retreated while keeping its eyes on Alaric. Ike! Ike! It issued weird shrieking sounds to communicate with its pack. You want to escape? As if I'd let you? Alaric snorted when he saw it retreating slowly. His mission would fail if the hyenas would escape, so to prevent this from happening, he no longer held back. He utilized his mana and strength in his arms and legs to increase his speed even further. Under the stunned gazes of the warriors, Alaric suddenly turned into a killing maniac. The pitiful whimpers of the hyenas echoed soon after he began his onslaught. It was a bloody scene that made the warriors flabbergasted. They even wondered if he had some beef with scaled hyenas before because of how brutally he killed them. The battle that was expected to last for some time ended in just a few minutes. Soon, the remaining scaled hyena fell under Alaric's sword. Everyone watched the figure whose leather armor was covered in blood. Underscore. Mission complete. Rewards 150 battle points, 15 XP, 15 stat points. Underscore. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 445 hundredths. Potential B. Traits: Horseback Riding C, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat C, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F, Sixth Sense F. Strength 100. Stamina 34 plus. Agility 43 plus. Vitality 27 plus. Endurance 42 plus. Mana 48 plus. Battle points 310. Stat points 43. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. Alaric smiled upon seeing the notifications on the cyan screen. I'm only 60 points short on my XP requirement. Step, step, step. Alaric closed the cyan screen when he heard someone approaching. He turned his head and saw Ronan walking towards him with a cautious expression. He stopped in front of Alaric and respectfully cupped his fists. Yes, sir. Thank you for lending us a hand in stopping these monsters. Our town owes you a huge favor. Alaric waved his hand. It's just a small matter. Besides, we are all citizens of Ostania, so it's only right for us to help each other, he added indifferently. Ronan couldn't help but admire him. As a patriot, his words resonated deeply in his heart. He thanked Alaric repeatedly and showered him with praises. To thank you for giving us a hand, all the profit we get from carcasses here will be given to you, sir. Ronan was determined to repay him. However, Alaric shook his head. You don't need to do that. Just send these carcasses to the residents of the town. This will also help you prevent them from resorting to robbery. Hearing this, Ronan raised his eyebrows in surprise. You are truly a good example to follow, sir. May I have the pleasure of knowing your name? My name, Alaric hesitated, but upon seeing the expression on Ronan's face, he decided to give him his name. It's Alaric. Chapter 78, Leaving Alverden. Alaric. Why does his name sound familiar? Ronan thought upon hearing his name. Captain Ronan, please don't tell anyone about our involvement here. I don't want to be disturbed during our stay here. Alaric cupped his fists. Ronan was taken aback, but he agreed without hesitation. Don't worry, Sir Alaric. My mouth is sealed. I will also inform my men to keep quiet. This was just a minor matter compared to what they had done for the town. Although he was a bit curious as to why he wanted to remain hidden, he didn't probe further. Thank you. Alaric smiled faintly. You can leave the cleanup to us, Sir Alaric. You two should return. The public officials will come here soon to inspect the situation, Ronan suggested. Note, Ronan doesn't know that Alaric is a noble, so he is using Sir here. All right. You guys be careful. There might be more monsters hidden in the darkness, Alaric reminded with a serious tone. Ronan smiled and nodded. We will. Oh, by the way, if you need any help, you can find me at the eastern gate of the town. I will keep it in mind. We'll take our leave first. Alaric bid him farewell, turned around, and left with Henry. Ronan watched them leave with a thoughtful look on his face. A moment later, one of the warriors came to his side and reported. Sir, only one monster had a beast soul crystal and took it with them. Ronan raised his eyebrows and glared at the warrior. There was no beast soul crystal found in the monster corpses, he muttered. The warrior was confused, but a look of realization dawned on him. I understand, sir. Good. Now gather everyone here. I need to tell them something, Ronan instructed with a stern voice. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, Alaric and Henry were now on their way back to the inn. My lord, I found this in the body of the alpha hyena. The rest don't have a crystal. Henry took out a small black crystal and handed it to Alaric. Alaric grabbed the crystal and observed it. The energy contained within the crystal was denser than the beast soul crystal dropped by the spiked grizzly bear. Too bad there's only one, but this is already a good harvest. I can use this to help my subordinates speed up their mana training. Thinking about this, he kept the crystal inside his leather pouch. My lord, you should clean up first. It won't be good if you return to the inn covered in blood. Henry handed him a clean cloth. Thank you. Alaric used the cloth to wipe off the blood on his skin and armor. By the time they arrived at the inn, they found out that the guests were still lingering at the reception hall. All eyes immediately gathered on them the moment they entered. One of the guests approached them and asked, "Hey, what's going on out there?" He sounded rude, which made Henry annoyed. If Alaric hadn't told them to remain low-key, he would have already slapped this man for talking down on Alaric. The man seemed to have realized his rudeness, so he quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I was too anxious just now because of the alarm." Alaric didn't mind this minor detail. "The town guards told us that they saw a pack of monsters outside the town. But it has already been dealt with, so there's no need to panic," Alaric explained briefly before he headed upstairs with Henry. Arthur, who was standing guard outside Ivana's room, immediately rushed to Alaric's side upon seeing them. "My lord, how was it? What happened out there?" he asked. Alaric told him about what happened. "I see. I thought it was something more serious." Arthur was relieved. "You two should head back to your rooms. I will explain the situation to Ivana first." Alaric waved his hand. "Yes, my lord." After they left, Alaric knocked on Ivana's door. "It's me." "Wait a moment." Ivana's response came quickly. A few seconds later, she opened the door and invited him in. Alaric told her about the incident. "I see. No wonder I can smell the scent of blood on you," the elf muttered while staring at him. Alaric wasn't surprised by this. He was already aware of her keen sense of smell. "Does it make you uncomfortable?" he asked. Ivana shook her head. "We also hunt wild animals and monsters for food." That night, the two talked longer than usual, deepening their unusual friendship. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next day, Alaric's group left the inn. "No one came to disturb us. It seems like Ronan did as he had promised," Alaric thought as they headed to the eastern gate of the town. This town is always attacked by monsters because of its location. Why didn't they ask for military support? There should be plenty of households in Vale and Rivat to ask for help, Arthur mumbled while shaking his head. "Sir Arthur, do you really think that they haven't asked for support from those cities?" Henry sneered. "What do you mean, Sir Henry?" Arthur glanced at the old man. "I bet that their requests have been rejected. No noble household would offer support to a small town, especially when they have nothing to gain," Henry replied. Unlike Arthur, who was a mercenary his whole life, Henry has interacted with a lot of people from the nobility. In his opinion, they were opportunists who only sought profit and power. Sir Henry is right. There is nothing to gain from helping this small town, so those noble households will most likely reject their request for military assistance, Alaric chimed in. Soon, they finally arrived at the eastern gate. Alaric and Henry saw a few familiar faces, including Ronan. The captain of the town guards was surprised to see them. He wanted to greet them, but he suddenly remembered the promise he made to them last night. "Captain, aren't they?" One of his subordinates discreetly pointed at Alaric's group. Ronan shook his head and made a shushing gesture. He then stared at Alaric and saw him waving his hand. Seeing this, Ronan smiled and waved back at him. "I hope we will see each other again, Sir Alaric." Chapter 79, Merchant Group. "To think we would celebrate the new year in the middle of nowhere," Henry mumbled in a joking tone. Arthur chuckled at his words. "What does that mean?" Ivana turned her head and curiously stared at them. She was now starting to get comfortable with the two old warriors. She thought that Alaric would be the only human she could be friends with, but she realized that there were also other good humans. Henry was about to speak when he saw Alaric's stern gaze. "It's nothing. Don't listen to them." Alaric shook his head. "Oh, okay. Sir Arthur, how is the progress of your mana training?" Alaric changed the topic. The former mercenary had a bitter look on his face. "I'm progressing slower than I thought, my lord." He felt ashamed to utter those words after receiving a lot of resources from Alaric and the household. There's no hurry. Alaric already expected this to happen. Arthur was already old, so his body wasn't reacting well to the resources he had taken. Just keep on working on your mana training. You will eventually advance, Alaric added calmly. Although Arthur was no longer in his prime, his body was still in great shape for someone his age. Once he had gathered enough mana, his advancement would follow. Yes, my lord, I will work hard, Arthur nodded with a serious look. Later that afternoon, the group decided to rest under a big pine tree. I'll prepare our food so you can do your mana training. Alaric tapped Arthur's shoulder. Yes, my lord, Arthur nodded and immediately went to find a spot to begin his mana training. Meanwhile, Henry left to gather some firewood. Ivana felt embarrassed that she was the only one who had nothing to do. She wanted to help them, but she didn't even know how to cook or do any simple task. After hesitating for a long while, she gathered her courage and approached Alaric, who was skinning a wild boar they had hunted earlier. Can you teach me how to do that? Alaric stared at her in surprise. The desire to learn was evident on her face, and Alaric couldn't bring himself to reject her. All right. Come here and observe how I do it. Alaric beckoned to her. Ivana eagerly squatted next to him and watched him skin the wild boar with such precision. Amazing. He looks so young, but he is good at this. How are you so good with the knife? She asked. Alaric didn't stop what he was doing and responded with a light chuckle. A lot of people taught me. After showing her how it was done, Alaric handed her the skinning knife. Now go ahead and try it. Just be careful not to cut your fingers, he reminded. Ivana took the knife and clumsily skinned the wild boar. Alaric couldn't see her expression, but her focused eyes made him smile. This is harder than I thought, Ivana muttered in embarrassment. That's all right. You just need more experience, Alaric chuckled. Suddenly, Alaric spotted a merchant group coming towards them. They had over 30 people and 20 of them were escort warriors. Alaric nudged the elf and whispered, "There are people coming." Ivana lifted her head and followed his gaze. A wary look flashed in her eyes upon seeing the group of strangers. Don't speak too much when they come here. I'll do the talking, Alaric reminded her. All right, Ivana nodded. Arthur was still in the middle of his mana training, so he didn't sense anything. Alaric stood up, walked towards Arthur, and tapped his shoulder. He didn't want to disturb Arthur's training, but this was an emergency. What can I do for you, my lord? Alaric didn't respond and pointed at the merchant group. Seeing them, Arthur frowned. The other side had 20 warriors. More than half of them were ordinary warriors and 4 were knights. But there was one person that he was unable to gauge. My lord, one of those warriors is dangerous, Arthur muttered. I know, Alaric nodded. He knew which person he was talking about. It was a middle-aged man who was wearing a fur coat over his leather armor. He was taller than Alaric and was probably as big as Galliner. An elite knight? Alaric narrowed his eyes. This was a troublesome situation, and it happened when Henry wasn't around. I hope these people aren't up to no good. With only Arthur by his side, Ivana would be left unprotected if a battle occurred. He could only pray that Henry would come back sooner. A moment later, the merchant group stopped in front of their camp. The escort warriors calmly stared at them, making Ivana feel uncomfortable. A fat man wearing a thick coat over his silk clothes stepped down from the leading carriage. He then cupped his fists at Alaric's group and smiled faintly. Hello, friends. I apologize for disturbing you. I'm Roy, a merchant from Hyro. Hyro? That's quite far. Alaric was familiar with the cities in the north, and Hyro was one of the most populated. The fat merchant scanned the faces of Alaric's group after introducing himself. When he noticed the expensive clothes that Alaric was wearing, his smile deepened. How can we help you, Sir Roy? Alaric asked while looking at the wagons that were covered in cloth. Based on the structure of the wagons, he could already tell what was inside. Slave wagons. In Estonia, the slave trade wasn't illegal and it was even one of the most in-demand businesses. Why do we have to encounter a slave trader of all people? Alaric knew that most people in this line of work were mostly involved in shady activities. We are on our way to Radonia to deliver some goods. Do you want to take a look at them? I promise you won't be disappointed. They are top quality products. Roy laughed while giving a signal to his servants. Before Alaric could respond, Roy's servants removed the cloth that covered the wagons, revealing the slaves inside. Chapter 80. A familiar face among the slaves. What do you think about my goods? You can have a closer look at them if you want. The fat merchant studied his expression, but Alaric remained calm so he couldn't tell what he was thinking. As an experienced merchant, the first thing he would do was to observe his client's behavior and expression, even the little movements they do. This was important in closing a deal since it gave him a rough idea about the client's interest in his products. However, the young warrior in front of him showed no emotion. His face was calm and that indifferent look in his eyes made him feel unnerved. At this moment, Alaric was looking at the slaves inside the wagons. Most of them looked emaciated, as if they hadn't eaten for a while. There were some with stronger bodies, but they were covered in bruises and wounds. That man. Alaric suddenly saw a familiar face among the slaves. Fredrin Steelheart. It was a face that he would never forget. Fredrin was one of the commanders who had served the Crown Prince during the Civil War in his past life. He was known as the Steel Bastion because of his exemplary accomplishments in that war. His shield was like an unshakable wall that no warrior could break. However, the man inside the wagon almost had no resemblance to the famous warrior in his past life. The Fredrin now looked like a beggar in his dirty linen clothes. Is that really him? Alaric turned his gaze at the merchant and asked, "Can you get them out of the wagon? I want to observe them up close." He didn't want to make it sound obvious that he was aiming for a specific person. Roy grinned at his words. Of course. The fat merchant clapped his hands and sent a signal to his servants. The slaves were tied in chains so it was impossible for them to escape. The weight of the thick metal chains also made it hard for them to walk. There were a total of 20 slaves. 11 were men and the remaining 9 were women. Their ages varied, with some looking like they were under 15 and the oldest one looking like they were in their 40s. Alaric approached the slaves one by one and pretended like he was inspecting them. "What kind of slaves are you looking for, sir? I can help you choose if you give me some information." Roy rubbed his hands while eagerly following Alaric. From the way Alaric brings himself, his gait, his temperament, and his aura, Roy could already guess that he was someone of high status. This was also the main reason why he was willing to show off his goods to this young warrior. Some slaves looked visibly terrified, while there were also some who looked like they had become numb to their cruel fate. When Alaric stood in front of one particular woman, a pregnant lady who looked to be in her 30s, Fredrin, who was expressionless the entire time, suddenly sent him a glare as if warning him not to do anything foolish. When Alaric saw his piercing gaze, he felt like he was looking at the same Fredrin he knew in his past life. It's indeed you, General Fredrin. And this woman must be his wife. From what he remembered, Fredrin's wife had already died even before the Civil War. She was also the main reason why he joined the Crown Prince's side. This was because the person who killed his wife was on the second prince's side. I understand now. Something clicked in his mind as if the last pieces of a puzzle had been found. I need an able-bodied man who knows how to hunt. I also need a woman who knows how to cook. Alaric randomly responded to Roy's question. I see. Roy rubbed his chin thoughtfully before he tapped a particular slave who looked fit and strong. How about this man right here, sir? He is one of the best hunters in his village. Alaric glanced at the slave he was suggesting and shook his head. I want that guy, he muttered as he pointed at Fredrin. The merchant had a troubled look on his face. This man is an elite knight, so he is very expensive. I'm not saying that you can't afford him. It's just that I already promised to bring this man to someone in Radonia, he explained. Alaric's face remained unchanged. 1 beast soul crystal for him. That's my price. 100 gold, huh? Did you just say 1 beast soul crystal? Roy couldn't believe his ears. Since when are beast soul crystals used in buying slaves? You heard me right. I'm willing to pay you 1 beast soul crystal for that person. Alaric nodded with a calm look. Roy gulped down hard. Even a normal beast soul crystal could fetch around 500 gold coins. That man from Radonia only promised to give me 300 gold coins for this elite night. This offer is good, but I might offend that person if I can't give him what he wants. Roy was in a dilemma. He wanted to accept Alaric's offer, but he didn't want to offend the client in Radonia. While he was hesitating, Alaric beckoned to Arthur. Seeing this, the former mercenary immediately walked towards him. "What can I do for you, my Altaham, sir?" "Give me the beast soul crystal," Alaric whispered. Arthur was taken aback, but he still handed him the beast soul crystal. "I'm sorry, Sir Arthur. This was supposed to be my reward for you." Alaric apologetically glanced at him. Arthur shook his head and smiled. "It's all right, sir. You don't need to apologize." Alaric sighed and tapped his shoulder. "Don't worry. I will give you the one we got from the saber-fanged wolf once we return to the estate." Arthur's eyes lit up upon hearing this. The beast soul crystal from the saber-fanged wolf was a disaster grade, so it was more valuable. If he could get it, his advancement was already guaranteed.